Welcome to our webinar, Standardise and Manage Your Audit Schedule. My name is Claire McCluskey and I am the Marketing Executive here at Gale for the Life Sciences and Healthcare team. I am joined by my colleague Paul Hastings. Paul is a professional service consultant and will be presenting this webinar. Paul has worked across a number of sectors over the years and can offer a wealth of knowledge and experience on how to improve quality management within organisations. Most recently, Paul has been an integral member of the Gale team in helping organisations such as Anthony Nolan, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, BTOP, Glen Turner Distilleries and SABIC implement an electronic quality management system. Our email addresses are on screen, so please feel free to use them and email us any questions, queries or feedback you may have after this webinar. The benefit of having the right system and process in place is the organisation can move simply beyond compliance to embracing an improvement mindset. An electronic management system can help do this. What an eQMS provides is a closed-loop approach to auditing, streamlined audit process, visibility of data and actions, clear responsibility of tasks, and effective trend analysis. As everyone may know, audit management is critical, yet often challenging and time-consuming. Not having the right system, processes, or approach in place can impact outcomes and results. Some of the heaviest burdens include paper-driven processes, lack of visibility, resource management, and the questions of what, where, and who to audit. No matter the type of audit being carried out, following these 4 stages can ensure your audit schedule is standardised and effective. These stages are planning, preparation and execution, reporting and follow-up. The quality of audit processes will determine the quality of the outcomes of the audit. Each of these stages can have a significant impact on the audit as a whole. We will look at some of these pains associated with each of these stages and how they can be overcome with an electronic quality management system.
So thank you, Claire. First of all, what I'd like to talk about are some of the pains that are associated with planning and audit. These are areas such as gathering the relevant documentation, visibility of relevant data, which is often stored in personal folders or desktops. We have previous audit reports, non-conformances that have been raised either against departments, processes or products, the visibility of audit schedules, and also resource availability. So if we think about systems such as QPulse, how can an eQMS support effective audit planning? We have the visibility of the audit history, we have the visibility of non-conformance history, the fact that all the related documents are in one place, we have a visible audit plan, and we also have the visibility of the internal audit resource. Okay, how would we be able to demonstrate this in QPulse? If you look at the slide that's currently on the screen, you can see there is my audit plan for 2015. We can see very clearly the title of the audit, the lead auditor, and we can see the status of the audits as well as if there are any non-conformances raised or outstanding. Moving on to the next slide, we can also look at the non-conformance visibility for an individual audit by looking at the left-hand side of the screen, where you'll see that SUP EXT NC1 is the audit raised from the audit highlighted on the screen. We can also move on to the next slide and we can see there the visibility of the audit team, so the people who are scheduled in as the auditor and lead auditor for that specific audit on that day. Moving on to the next area of the audit plan and process, we can see the preparation of an audit and some of the pains that are associated with preparing an audit. So for example, how would you identify the relevant scope, identifying the relevant checklist questions, selecting the correct resource, and also the gathering of historical data. If we move on again to the next screen, how can an eQMS support effective audit preparation and execution? What systems such as QPulse have are integrated scope relationships for areas such as the area of standards, the departments, the processes, the products and services, documents and other areas. We also have the advantage of predefined checklist templates and a master question bank. If we move on to the next screen, what we're going to take you through now is how to get into these areas of audit scope relationships and how to manage these. So the first screen that we see here, as you can see by going into the edit area in the toolbar and selecting Manage Audit Scope Relationships. This will then take you into the first screen where you determine what scope relationship you want to set up first. So you can choose from the area of standard, the document, the process, the supplier, the department, the product or service, or other subjects. So for example, if I select a process, I can then select from my process managed list and select that as the keys scope area. I can then select relevant areas of standards or documents or departments by selecting them from the area on the left hand side. Moving forward from that, by setting the audit scope in the team, this is done by creating a new non-conformance from a wizard. So if I select, for example, my audit type being process and the title of that audit being the primary scope area, I can then demonstrate the audit scope relationship by showing you on the following screen how all the selected areas come in together. So by selecting the repair process as my primary scope item, all the relevant documentation, departments and areas of standard would then automatically be drawn into that scope. Okay. Moving on next to the following screen, you can see how this would then appear in the audit report template. So you can see in the scope area of that audit template, the relevant standards, the relevant documentation and the relevant departments have all been brought into that audit scope. Again, on the following screen, by selecting the master audit checklists, you can then go in and create a brand new template to be selected on the audit. We can select individual questions by dragging over from the master question bank to use in the audit. All that remains to be done then is to give that audit checklist a template, to give that audit checklist template a name, and it can then be used either in that audit or in future audits as well. Okay, moving on to the reporting area and some of the pains associated with audit reporting and findings. We know that the problems that you have with areas such as paper-driven reports, lost and unread emails, folders containing reports are not accessible to all relevant people, we have disagreement on findings, we have the quality of the findings data, and we have unsolicited findings raised after the closing meeting. So, how can an eQMS such as QPulse support effective audit reporting? We have the automated distribution of reports and associated findings. We have mandatory data required when raising the findings using wizards. We have electronic signature for accepting reports. We have auditor editing lockout when a report has been accepted, and we have flexible reporting, which is the mobile apps. So, moving on to the following screen, let's look at how that would be carried out in QPulse. So, if we look first of all at the automatic notification of audit findings acceptance, we can look and see that in the messaging system in the admin module, you can set up an automated message when an audit report is complete and who that would go out to. If we look at the electronic signature management for accepting the audit reports, this is very similar to the previous screen, that if I was the person responsible for accepting the audit findings, I'd be sent a message saying I had that action to complete. And the default message in that just now is, by performing the action, I declare I agree with the audit findings. And to complete that, I would need to put in my user ID and password. Moving on to the next screen, you can see that the status of that audit has changed from performed to report completed. And you can also see in the right hand side of the screen that the ability to raise any additional non-conformances has now been removed, because the audit findings have been agreed. When raising non-conformances in an audit and using the wizard, you can see in the screen here that the system will not allow me to move on to the next screen because I have not added in mandatory details that are required. You have the ability to set as many fields in the wizard as you would like to be mandatory or not, whatever you prefer. Moving on to the follow-up on an audit, and let's talk about some of the pains associated with audit follow-up. Target dates for findings not being adhered to, the visibility of ownership of actions, the notification of due actions, and the inability to identify trends at an early stage. And let's talk again about how an electronic management system can support audit follow-up. You've got the notifications for reminders for actions assigned and due. You've got clear visibility of all open and outstanding actions. For example, things like your saved searches and your workload. And then you've got trend analysis available immediately after the findings have been raised. The next screen we'll look at is the workload. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at the advanced workload. So I can see, for example, all the open actions and the type of open actions they are for the whole organisation. And you can see here that where I've got highlighted, there are 4 open non-conformances that are target date on or before today. Now everybody has access to their own workloads, and people at a higher level of the organisation would have access to the advanced workload. Moving on, this is viewed from actually inside the non-conformance or Kappa module, and we can see here what I've done is I've grouped all the non-conformances by their owner and by the source of those non-conformances as well. So I can see who owns each individual non-conformance and the origin of those non-conformances as well. If I move on to the next screen here, we can see here is the reminder message for due actions. Now we can see here that this is currently set at 10 days before the due target date. You have the ability to send that message out 10 days before, 15 days before, 7 days before, 2 days before, and if required you also have the ability to send that message out on repeat until that action is completed. We also have here on the following screen is going back into the non-conformance template. We can see that the fields for category, resolution, root cause and severity all have the red asterisk beside them. That's because those fields must be completed before I can close the non-conformance down, which means that 100% of the time when you go into and analyse your non-conformance performance and trend analysis, you know the category, the resolution, the root cause and severity of all of your non-conformances. Going on to the next screen, we can see here the visibility of supplier non-performance. Now, if you're performing supplier audits, it'd be quite nice to have a quick visual of all the non-conformances raised against each supplier. In QPulse, any non-conformance you raise against the supplier is stored directly against their record. Moving on again, another very important aspect of non-conformance analysis is the trend analysis of how many non-conformances of each type you are coming across. So when we look at the first screen here, we can see the default, which is just to measure all your non-conformances by source. And you can see the way I've got mine structured. I have all my non-conformances from audits grouped together, all my non-conformances not from audits grouped together, my improvement actions grouped together, and my incidents raised together. Moving on, I can then look and see all of my sources versus the departments that they're being raised against. Following on from that, you can then see I have my source versus the category. And after that, what we have is an example of trend analysis saved searches. So you can see by the column on the left hand side, which is my analysis folders, I've done what you can do in all the other modules as well. I've created a saved search for non-conformances. So if I wanted to, I could do, for example, all the non-conformances raised from audits year to date. I could do all my supplier non-conformances versus the category they've been raised against. So there's really quite a good variety. You can then also do things like a comparison between last year's performance and this year's performance. Moving on to the next area, which is where can we get some help on checklists, assistance with non-conformance and how to do analysis. Customer portal is the best area to do this. There's a number of different functions within the customer portal, one of which is being able to share checklists. So by going into the checklist area that you can see on the screen there, the next area it'll take you into is being able to build, share or benefit or download checklists. So if you go into the benefit area and you select find a checklist, there will then be a number of checklists there that you'll be able to download onto your desktop and import directly into your QPulse system. Okay, what I'll do now is I'll hand back over to Claire and she'll take you through the final stages of this webinar.
Thank you very much for your attention. I would like to invite you all to get in touch with us to schedule your own personalised free demonstration of QPulse. We have looked at audit management, however QPulse can do so much more for you. Our marketing and business development team would be delighted to speak to you on an individual basis to demonstrate the full capabilities of QPulse and how it can align to the requirements of your organisation, be they document management, corrective and preventive actions, people and training, asset management or any other quality management process. Thank you again for your time and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.